Half a day. This episode was recorded in July of 2023 as we were still dealing with the aftermath of Typhoon Mawar. You might pick up on me struggling as an interviewer in general, but in this episode in particular. I thought I more or less knew how the conversation would go, but I just kept getting surprised at my guests' expert answers of stuff I never even thought to think about. That said, if you enjoy my content or find it valuable, I hope you'll consider supporting me through PayPal or becoming a patron on Patreon. Now, please enjoy the show. Okay, half a day. Welcome back to another episode of The Guam Guy Show. Got a really cool episode lined up for you. I'm here with Mr. Irvin Slike. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Okay, from Guam Solid Waste Authority. I think I said those words in the proper order.
Correct.
Okay, cool. So you've been on Guam and you've had this position since 2021. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, cool. So I thought this was a really good opportunity to talk about waste management after a typhoon, but also waste management in general. I don't think most of us really know what happens to our waste, and honestly, even if we're disposing of it properly. Even myself, I consider myself an environmentalist, and I only found out really last year about the really proper way to dispose of electronics. I don't usually throw away electronics, so it's not something that's been on my radar. All right, so thank you for joining me, and maybe let's just kind of start with as a brief overview. What is Guam Solid Waste Authority responsible for?
Well, basically, it's an authority that was created to manage residential waste on the island. We are an authority, so we have ratepayers who support the infrastructure necessary to do that. And speaking of electronics that you brought up, for every person on the island, whether you're a customer of GSWA or not, we have the Harmon transfer station just outside the office that will take household hazardous waste as well as electronics free of charge all throughout the year.
Yeah, I'm familiar with those.
Yeah.
I did a video with GTA about that, actually.
Right.
Oh, I hope I can get them on the podcast too. Anyway, so you said, is it mostly focused on the residential aspect, or does Guam Solid Waste also have commercial customers? I don't know the word to use. Is there?
No commercial customers, just residential.
Oh, okay. So is there another party that's responsible for?
That's usually there's 3 or 4 private haulers that collect from hotels, hospitals, etc.
Okay.
Restaurants.
All right. So on the upstream end, you have the collection aspects of waste management, and
Correct.
then on the downstream, we have the dump.
For disposal, we're the only landfill on the island that's licensed to take that waste, commercial or residential.
Okay, so so now I use the word dump, and I'm wondering if that's the wrong word, because I hear dump and landfill, and I think I hear those words used synonymously, and maybe they're not. So I've heard more cautious people say dump, and then other cautious people also, or even the same cautious people will say Luzon landfill.
Yeah.
Are those the same thing, or are those different things?
Yeah.
I mean, they're obviously different places, but
Right.
dumps and landfills.
Right. I decided after 19 years of education and my first job that I took in 1985 to work at a landfill instead of a dump. I mean, that's typically how people describe them, but you don't have an engineered landfill and go through all the permitting and then still call it a dump, because it's really an ongoing construction project that protects the environment. So I made it a habit of correcting people and telling them that it's really a landfill, because it's what I want to work in instead of a dump.
It's okay. So there's a sort of, I don't want to say political correctness or romantics about the word to use, but is there a technical difference? So one thing I've heard maybe is that a dump is you just throw trash in an area, and a landfill has layers of stuff underneath. Is there a technical aspect to that?
A landfill is constructed. A landfill is sited so that you make sure that you don't put it into any waterways. It's an engineered project. And there's operations and engineering that go into it. Luzon landfill has 2 liners, actually 4. There's HPDE, a synthetic liner, as well as 2 clay liners underneath it, as well as collection zones in 3 areas. and there's a waste screening process that we go through. So it's the safest place to put the island's waste is in that landfill.
Okay. Do you? So I imagine this was quite before your time, I'm guessing. But would you happen to know the backstory of how Luzon was chosen? And
I do not.
okay,
I do know that it was political, as is, I would say, all landfill sightings.
NIMBY.
Yeah.
The NIMBY principle.
Exactly.
If you've not heard of, like viewers, listeners, if you've not heard of NIMBY, it's NIMBY, not in my backyard.
So, so if you want an exercise in NIMBYism, look on the
NIMBYism.
right. Look, Google Map, the Delaware-Maryland border, and you'll notice that the state of Delaware and the state of Maryland have placed their landfills exactly near that border, as far away from everybody as possible. Same thing happened in Oregon and Washington State.
Okay.
So it's a thing, you know.
Okay. So just staying with the dump, like, and the downstream aspect. So, like, theoretically, what type of trash and waste could landfills accept, our Luzon landfill accept, and what could it accept, and what does it actually accept, and more importantly, not accept, and why?
So basically everything that you generate in your house during your normal household activities, the Luzon landfill can accept. We have recently applied to take some of the other what's called special wastes on the island to allow them to be put into this safe, secure landfill. And those items are treated or painted lumber. There's mildly contaminated soil. So this is soil that has some contamination, but it's not deemed hazardous. And
what's an example of that?
So if you have like a gas station, for example, that had an old tank in it that leaked, so you've got some fuel-contaminated soil. If you dig it up and you test it and you find out that it is contaminated, but it's not flammable or hazardous or ignitable, it typically is put into a Line municipal landfill. In Guam, it's been restricted, so that all that material was moved off island. It's very expensive.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So there's an opportunity to take that at Luzon if the Guam EPA Authority approves it.
Okay. So what else could the Luzon landfill, as engineered, as designed, could accept but doesn't?
So there's also in the contiguous United States, municipal solid landfills have been able to take asbestos. And I believe that was a political issue when Luzon opened. There's nothing inherently dangerous with asbestos. It's an inhalation problem. And it could, again, all the asbestos on the island has been shipped off at a great expense. For those people listening, if you remember the snowfall scene in Wizard of Oz, where Dorothy's running through the poppies and the witch puts the snowfall down to, make everybody wake up. That was asbestos that fell down.
Oh my God!
And Jimmy Stewart's Christmas movie was also, the snow in that was also It's a Wonderful Life. Sorry, was also asbestos.
So isn't it mega carcinogenic or something like that? I thought that was the.
It is.
I've never looked into it, but that's
right.
That's my understanding.
If you look through the health statistics, so if you're a smoker, and you had exposure to asbestos, you have a greater risk than an ordinary person. When landfills take asbestos, it's double bagged. It's put in a secure area. There's no other people allowed in it, and it's buried immediately. So the risk to it.
Oh, okay.
Being airborne or whatever, there's a greater risk actually when you remove it from a building. And then, you've seen people with Tyvek suits, respirators. That's what the degree of protection you need when you remove it. Once it's in the bag, put into a truck and disposed of, represents no danger at all.
Okay. Well, I on the podcast I talk about like nothing is safe, nothing is dangerous. There's just levels of risk management. Well, and so
yeah,
and I guess like unless the bag ruptures, right?
Right.
But okay.
So I had to do this with a workforce in Canada who we were able to take asbestos at the Winnipeg landfill, where I worked before I came here to Guam. And I explained it to the workforce who was heard about asbestos, was worried about it. And I said, when I moved to Florida, we lived next to a lake. And in the lake, there was alligators. And my mom, who grew up in Erie, Pennsylvania, heard about alligators and thinking, what the hell are you doing, son? You're taking my granddaughters and they're going to be eaten by alligators, right? And you have to respect asbestos, just like you have to respect an alligator. But there's certain things that you do, like you don't swim in the lake at night. You don't walk around it with a small dog in the early morning because alligator, that's food, right? So there's certain things that you can do to mitigate your risks. And that's what you do with asbestos or alligators or, anything else that, people are not familiar with or are afraid of.
No, I used to live in Australia, so
yeah.
And I'll tell you what, I saw one snake the entire time I lived there. I lived there for 2 years. It was one snake, and it was some kind of python, so it wasn't even venomous. I guess it just depends where you go and what you're doing and what kind of trouble you're trying to get into or not trying to get into. So, all types of. But the point of it is that it is a hazardous material to one degree or another, depending on the situation, and probably the safest way to manage it is what you outlined: double bag it and treat it as it's supposed to be treated in the context of a landfill.
Right. It was a mineral that was in the earth that was dug up, and that's the best place to put it back in there.
Okay, cool. So we talked about what you can accept and what you theoretically could accept and do and don't accept. But so things slip through cracks all the time. So could you characterize the waste that is in the dump, broadly?
Well, I imagine there are aerosol paint cans, that people have mixed in with household garbage that are in there.
So spray paint?
Sure. Spray paint. Okay. We know that when people have radioactive tests, take medicine for GI.
So when they put the dye in your blood or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's radioactive, right? And they, they use Depends. We flag those. We get those at both Rubbish Man and the landfill. We have radioactive monitors, and then the truckload, you'll hear a beep, and so that truck has to offload, and we have to search around with basically a Geiger counter and find the material and then remove it.
Well, so wait, is it the trucks or the facilities that have these kind of radio? I don't.
No, it's the individual homeowner who has a GI. Goes to the hospital and gets a dye test done or ingest the material, and then they take a scan. And afterwards, they have to relieve themselves or whatever, and that's captured, and then we find it in the radioactive systems that we have set up to monitor that stuff.
But within your...
You can also get it from a smoke alarm too.
Yeah. So within your tools, literally your toolkits here, and you have some physical sensors somewhere that can detect radioactive isotopes.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Are those on trucks? Are those facilities?
No. They're on the scale house. So before they go into the dumping area, they're noted, and then that load is set off to the side, and then hand picked through to find out where the material is. Could be a smoke alarm. Could be.
So what happens to those? This is not going how I was expecting at all. This is amazing.
Well, this happened. They started doing this stuff probably in the 90s in the U.S. So it's been a part of the industry.
So what do you do when you find where do they go? You sort it out, you detect it.
It goes with our household hazardous waste. We have contracts to remove that material and ship it off island. Okay.
Wow. Okay. So we didn't talk about green waste yet, but is green waste, so if I peel my vegetables and stuff like that goes in the regular trash. Right.
We don't take at Lejeune tree trimmings or anything like that.
Okay.
People have house plants, etc. Somebody will probably stick some branches or leaves in. We're not actually actively looking for it. But if we see one of our containers that are, filled with tree limbs, then they're tagged and we don't pick that up.
Mm-hmm. So I can't remember where, but I heard a I don't know if I want to use the word criticism, but let's say observation, that maybe there should be a little bit more green waste going into dumps and landfills. Something about the biological breakdown processes help break down other things. Is that true? Or could you comment on that?
It will break down. I mean, there's landfills that routinely take the material.
Mm-hmm.
Landfills that I operated in Florida are similar to what you have here. So the plant material you have on the island is very high in lignin, like your palm leaves, etc.
Okay.
They don't break down like an oak leaf would in Connecticut, for example, when it falls onto the ground.
What does that mean? Does that make it break down slower, faster?
Very slow.
Okay.
It's sort of like pine needles.
So our stuff breaks down slower?
Very.
Oh, wow.
Right. It's high in lignin content, breaks down slow. The palms.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you have other vegetation, the vines and whatever that can. So in Florida, what the landfills typically do is take that material, segregate it. The landfill will accept it at a charge, but that charge will cover the grinding of it into smaller particles, and then that mulch material, either people use it. We had orange groves in Orlando that would use it as a tracking material in their orange groves, so their tractors wouldn't get stuck in the sand. So they lay it out as a road material. You had some golf courses that had the time, and they would mix it in with the grass clippings, which have high nitrogen content. The lignin is very high in carbon, so if you have the right mixture of two, you can make soil, which is in the golf course's best interest. So they do that.
So real quick sidebar here. So we see like these kind of memes that aren't often true, but there's like one that it almost sounds semi-conspiratorial. But do oranges come off the tree in the color orange, or?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
then they'll turn white, moldy.
Okay. So you see these things circulate on Facebook, right? Like oranges don't turn orange on the tree; they're dyed to be orange, and that seems like way overkill, because we have other produce here, other citrus that actually turn orange. So I'm like, why would oranges not be orange?
No, that's how you know they're ripe.
So that's just totally ridiculous.
On oranges,
okay, totally ridiculous.
I'm not a fruit expert, but
okay. As we were speaking, I always appreciate things and people and fields that have such depth to them, where there's a lot of things to consider and things most people wouldn't talk about or think about rather. And I'm hearing waste management getting down to chemistry. And so I'm just kind of like developing an even greater appreciation for this. So this is fascinating. All right. So I'm not sure if we quite answered the question or got to it though. And let me go back to what the question was does having green waste or organics decomposing in a landfill help other things break down that you would want them to?
So to answer your question about decomposition,
mm-hmm.
right? A modern landfill, once you put it in and you cover it, basically takes all the oxygen out.
Mm-hmm.
Oxygen is what makes things decompose.
Mm-hmm.
So literally, and to give you an example of this, so we closed, I worked in Frederick County, Maryland, which is north of D.C. We closed that landfill, and in the process of closing it, you got to put in a gas collection system, and we had to dig trenches for the gas wells that we put in. One of the trenches that we dug, I had a group of, they were Fort Detrick landfill operators that wanted to see how Frederick County was managing its closure project, because they needed to close their landfill. So I had these Fort Detrick landfill managers and operators, probably 6 of them, and we were digging this trench, and we pulled up a newspaper, and I was telling them that things don't decompose in the landfills. And this trench was probably 20 feet deep,
mm-hmm.
right? Pulled it up. Newspaper was wet, but legible. Turned it open, and there was a picture of the class of 1958, I believe. So it was 30 years, 40 years to the day. It was like May 18th. It was May May 18th because that's my anniversary, right? So it was May 18th. I think it was 58.
You were working on your anniversary?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the picture was one of the operators at Dietrich. That was his sister who won valedictorian.
Whoa.
And you could see her. So I'm just saying, things don't decompose as most people think in a landfill. It's because you cover it, eliminate the oxygen, and it's basically in a suspended state.
So when is closure when like you're not adding any more waste, or is there?
Well, that whole process happens actually when you do the daily cover. So I'm sure there's stuff at the bottom of Lejeune Cell 3 that if you were to take an excavator and try to dig it up, you could actually see newspapers or letters or correspondence. And they're going to be wet, they're going to be stinky, but they're legible.
Okay, so you said cell 3. What is a cell?
A cell is a small area that, so Lejeune is like 150 acres in its disposal footprint.
Okay.
You don't dig up and create a 150 acre landfill all at once because it's going to take you an enormous amount of time. There's 75 years at least with Lejeune.
Okay. So how many cells are there?
11.
11 cells. And when did we start using Lejeune? I don't remember exactly.
I believe it was 2016.
2016. Okay, so it's still quite recent. So it's only been 2016 is 2023, so 7 years. Yeah, it's only been 7 years, and
I think it started before RDOT was closed, so it might have been 2014. I don't know. 8 years.
So less than 10. Let's say less than 10. No problem. All right, less than 10 years. So and you said we're projecting how long for it to last?
From the last compaction report we got, which was last year, October of 2022, it had 75 years of life as of that date.
Okay. Is that at current waste production rates, or
Right.
is if the population grows, or?
That was included what we typically do for our own population statistics. So it's using GovGuam's population increase, which is less than 2%, I believe.
Projections.
Yeah. That's included with that.
Okay, 70 odd years. That's cool. All right, what else do we have? So what happens after that?
Well, that's for the community to decide. I mean, people have asked me, why don't we do waste energy? We can just burn it and then we don't have to have a landfill. I'm like, well, matter is neither created nor destroyed. So you have ash that has to go into the landfill. But you won't need as much space, right? True. But, the same amount of money that you're paying for the landfill operation for the 300 tons per day that you get, essentially you're going to be paying that same amount of money because you need the operators, you need the equipment, you have to create the landfill space. So essentially you're not saving a whole lot of money by reducing, that it's fixed costs for that. So, and then waste energy depends upon the user of the electricity to pay you above market rates.
Oh.
Inherently.
Mm-hmm. So I was going to come back to this later, but I had the opportunity to tour the H Power facility on Oahu. Are you familiar with it?
I've heard about it. Yeah.
Okay, and so it's exactly what they are. They say they're a refuse to energy production, waste disposal site, whatever we want to call them. But they say that their goal is not to produce really energy. That's just a happy byproduct. But their real goal is to reduce the volume, not the weight, but the volume of waste that goes into the landfills. Right. And they say they reduce it by 90%. Right.
They do.
And so I'm like, okay, that's amazing. That said, there's, an emotional reaction in me that just kind of hates the idea of burning trash. But there's a claim there that if you just have, they don't burn plastics. They would love to. It's a great energy. It's it would keep the fires burning well and produce more power, I think. But they said they can't. They recycle it. And so it just goes to the landfill anyway. And then in the landfill, they say, with UV light hitting it, photo degradation, it releases gases anyway. And so they say in terms of emission, it's actually better just to burn it and and create that energy. So cost aside, we are a much smaller island than Oahu, and it seems like on a long enough timeline, a mathematical just kind of need to do something else with our waste than to continue piling it up or digging holes and throwing it in there.
Yeah, I know.
So,
and if I had those answers, then I'd be someplace else other than Guam, but I don't. And it is a conundrum because, as I said on previous interviews, when they asked me about the waste energy, so typically when I was in the 90s, early aughts, a waste energy plant that was built and operated and financed was typically in the 3,000 to 6,000 tons per day range. Guam produces 300 tons a day. So just economies of scale, it isn't there.
Could you say those numbers again? Sorry.
Yeah, it's 3,000 to 6,000 tons per day. Those were the plants that were built in the mid-90s through the early 2000s. Since then, there has been no waste energy plant built in the continental United States for the past 25 years. There's only one that was being built in Poland last year in the world. So the idea that I've heard is like, these are money makers. You can save your landfill. It's this great panacea. If it was such a great thing, there should be more of them than there are.
So,
and it's because it's the most expensive way to make electricity is to build a waste energy plant, and the utilities, for right or wrong, have been set up so that anybody that produces electricity is always paid what they call the off-peak hourly rate. So in Florida, they can charge you like 29 or 30 cents per kilowatt hour. If you build a waste energy plant in Florida right now, they're only going to offer you like 2 or 3 cents because that's their off-peak production rate. And there's no way you're going to finance, $300 to $400 to $500 million plant on pennies on the kilowatt.
So my priority would be not the energy production, but the waste volume reduction, right? So let's take a dark turn down. What do you think about incinerators?
Just to burn it
Yeah.
with no energy?
Yeah. I mean, like, would that be cheaper than trying to have the whole thing about, because a lot of, if every I'm born and raised here, and every handful of years or so, people were like, we just need an incinerator. We just need to start burning things, right? Yeah. And I don't know if is that an opinion of ignorance, or is that just or is it not as bad as it sounds, or is it worse than it sounds? Like, what is your perspective on that?
When I grew up in rural Erie County, Pennsylvania, I mean, we had our burn barrel. I mean, so
a burn what?
Barrel.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we lived 16 miles outside of the city of Erie, and that's how my family, dealt with its waste. So I understand the volume reduction. You got all this stuff, put it into the burn barrel, light it up, it's ashes. My dad would take the ashes and we'd mix it in the garden, But we weren't burning plastic or, I mean, those were the days in the 60s and 70s where, Coca-Cola still came in glass bottles. You didn't have 2-liter plastic, So, that was then. This is now. To just do incineration with no energy recovery, and you want to protect the air, because I'm sure you don't want smoldering smoke hanging out over Guam. There's a big cost in that, in reducing the air pollution. So again, I don't know the benefit. You definitely would get the volume reduction.
Okay.
But at what cost to build this thing, scrub the air, and then get the volume reduction? You're still going to need a landfill. So this idea that I don't have to worry about building another landfill. Well, maybe you don't, but maybe your grandkids will. So.
Okay. So we have the one landfill right now, active landfill, Luzon, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it feels like an intuitive thing to think that we can just take everything there, but it doesn't seem to be the case. Why don't we have like just one location we can bring everything that we need to dispose of? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think ultimately, doing something with the green waste, chipping it up, producing mulch, I think that's something that GSWA may look at, because I do hear it from people, like, what do we do with this stuff, especially after the typhoons, came through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a couple of lists here. One from your own website, Guam Solid Waste Authority's website, and I have also from Guam EPA. So maybe we'll dive into a couple of those specific things in there. But one thing I don't see on either of these is junk cars. Where can people dispose of cars? I don't imagine you take them.
No.
No? Okay.
Right now, that's being handled by Guam EPA and the mayors. They have a program where they take the abandoned cars, and I think they take them to global recycling right now, and they ship them off island.
Okay, so without having to go through any hoops, if I just say, well, I just want to trash this car and be done with it and get rid of it responsibly, where did you say I would go? Did you say Pyramid?
Global.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and so is that normal? Is it normal for a private entity to handle types of waste in the U.S.?
Well, so in the U.S. there's usually scrap yards, and either they'll take the car for free or there's a small charge involved with it. Some of the cars that are in accidents, for example, are totaled, and then they're turned over to the Department of Motor Vehicles, and then the motor vehicles have contracts with scrap dealers to then dispose of them. That's typically how it's done.
And you said either for free or a small fee?
Because,
what's a small fee? Like $20?
No, I don't know, maybe 80.
Okay.
Something like
Still,
that.
Yeah, that's cost less than to renew my car every year.
Right. Right. So it depends on scrap metal. It's like any other commodity. It goes up and down in value. So sometimes they'll take it for free because they can earn $800-900 off of it.
Okay, so they're actually able to harvest metal and repurpose it.
Sure. Yeah.
And we can't.
I don't know the economics of the scrap situation on Guam.
Okay.
But all I know is what I've dealt with on the continental U.S. and in Canada.
Okay.
There's value to the cars. Because
some people are like selling their cars for like, low hundreds, and they sometimes they're not even running. Like we have this thing on Guam Grabs on Facebook called like mechanic special. The car's not running, but it could.
It could, right? Yeah.
if you're good enough. So okay, because to this day, I still don't know how to get rid of junk cars. I have a friend who's a professor at the University of Guam Marine Lab. He's dealing with a situation where someone dumped some cars near his house, and no one knows what to do. And it's a terribly unfortunate situation. He's like, if he knew where he could go, he might just, fork out the money himself just to get taken care of. So, it's the hazards are not there for his kids, or just the eyesore is not there, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And any reason is valid in that case. And I still don't know. So maybe I'll ask, it was global, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I'll ask global what the situation is for junk car disposal. Okay. Let's just go ahead and go all the way downstream.
Sure.
So where does everything go? So you accept stuff at Luzon landfill, but what doesn't go in the landfill, and where else do things go? I think the Limtiacos, I can't remember their business name, but they take green waste. I think it's Pacific Unlimited. Does that sound familiar to you? So
outside of Ordot?
Yeah.
I think there's a green waste site there. Yeah.
Okay. So you got the Household Hazardous Waste Facility. Is that what it's
Hmm.
called? And yeah, so we're right behind it, so we could smell it, listeners. So just so you know where we are, that's where the office is. And let me tell you how I found out that it exists, because I only found out it exists honestly last year. And I was my friends and I do. Oh, I'm wearing the shirt right now. So we call ourselves the Guam Extreme Cleanup Crew. And so these are the types of things you see us doing. So
Hmm.
we are scuba divers, we're free divers, we're rock climbers, we're hikers, and a couple other things too now. And we started doing cliffside cleanups in 2021. So we'll rappel down like at Oka Point, or we'll rappel down into sinkholes, get the trash out, and either put them in bags, pull them up with ropes, or fly them up with drones. Shout out to Bella Wings Aviation and Mike Kittigwa. Um, and I think I don't remember if I reached out to GTA or they reached out to me, but they're like, "Hey, we like what you're doing. Would you like to collaborate with us?" And I agreed to produce 2 videos with them or slash for them. And one of them was they had this idea. I was like, well, how do you dispose of electronic waste properly? And I'm like, I'm not actually sure I know the answer to that. And then I found out that the household hazardous waste facility exists, and it's one of those things where it's like you go on the website and all this and like, okay, this was probably made in 19 Tanaki, it's probably old news, it's probably not accurate anymore, but get rid of electronics for free. That does not sound possible. I'm sorry, it doesn't sound possible. And so I tested it, right? And so I made this video for GTA, and we rappel down the cliff, and I tell my guys, hey, keep an eye out for any kind of electronics, okay?
Hmm.
And somebody finds a printer, and then like printer slash scanner. I'm like, okay, save that one for me. And so I take it, keep it separated from all the rest of the trash, bring it up, load that one in my car, especially, and then I'm like, I film myself doing this, like driving it through the household hazardous waste
Hmm.
facility, and there's a guy there, and I hand him the printer, and then he just takes it from me. I'm like really? This seems way too simple for is Guam Solid Waste a GovGuam agency?
It
Or is it
is,
its
yeah.
own thing? Okay, so this sounds impossibly simple for a GovGuam agency. Like I show up with electronics, something you would expect to be difficult to get rid of properly, and it was literally as easy as handing it over. Like I don't think they asked for my name or see a driver's license or to fill out a form or anything. I just, you know, I don't think I even had to get out of the car. I could have theoretically just passed it out the window, and the guy took it in his hands and got rid of it. So that is a very interesting list, and maybe I'll run through a few of those things really quickly so people can
So,
appreciate that. Go ahead.
so just so people understand, that's free for any Guam resident,
Mm-hmm.
and it's our ratepayers who pay the monthly subscription to pick up the refuse. That covers that cost. So it is a cost to us, but we
Pay for it out of
pay
the.
for it out of that. And what we'll be going for to the PUC is a rate increase of $5 per month, and that will again cover this program as well as set up for the first time the long-term closure, the long-term cell construction that was basically ignored by the receiver. So we need to set up those.
What's the receiver?
The receiver was uh, who managed the program when ORDOT was had a
Is this like a contractor?
no, it's the receiver that took over the whole solid waste operation on the island
Mm-hmm.
because of the ORDOT consent decree. It took it away from DPW, who used to collect solid waste.
Okay.
That was 2010 or so, long time ago. But anyway, the receiver was in charge of the Guam Solid Waste Authority, and they set up the $30 rate, set up the program where it's free of charge for all of the island. And to pay for that, right now we're asking for a $5 per month increase, but it helps pay for that free program as well as something that wasn't contemplated or even the math done on it, which is how the next cell is going to be financed. That was always not planned for. The closure of Lejeune, there's by law requires you to have a post-closure care fund set up. We have $200,000 in that. It's woefully inadequate.
I was gonna say that's like you can't build a house for 200K.
Right.
Like, so you're gonna close a landfill of 70 years by then,
Right.
plus inflation, and
Right.
that isn't.
So that needs to be funded properly. And again, that's what that $5 is going towards.
Okay. So just some items that you could actually throw into the household hazardous waste facility for free. And it's got a lot of like kind of hazardous liquids, it seems like. Correct me if I'm wrong at any point. Paint, adhesives, solvents, cleaners, pesticides, herbicides, gas, diesel, any kind of flammable liquid, those are all accepted. Microwaves, take microwaves, TVs, any size.
Yep.
Okay, I have a
50-inch, 60-inch,
I have a
70.
65-inch victim of Typhoon Mawar.
Yeah.
What else do rice cookers, any kind of electronics except white goods.
Correct.
So white goods, if you're not familiar with this term, meaning washing
Refrigerators,
machines, dryers, refrigerators, stoves / ovens, right? So what makes those different? Why not take those too?
We did take them during the 2-week period after Mawar. We did take them. Generally, they're scrap metal, and that's something that we do collect it. If you're a customer, we collect up to 10 items per year. So you could have a refrigerator, a stove from our customers that we will pick up. And as you pointed out, it's for whatever reason, it is expensive to remove metal from the island. And we can't afford, or haven't run the numbers to afford, everybody being able to take that material here at the transfer stations.
And I imagine questions like, what if we add a tax or a fee or whatever? That's a legislature question.
It is.
Okay.
It is.
Okay. So are white goods special because of their size? At that point, it's more scrap metal than electronics, or?
What drives the expense up with white goods is so early in my career, metal was a moneymaker. So you could take a stove or refrigerator and make money off of it. Right now, and those markets were, as they were then, as they are now, predominantly Asian. What they've tightened up on is in any modern like stove, refrigerator, appliance, there's insulation, foam insulation, fiberglass. They don't want that. And so they will, and it's a cost to them to dispose. Once they shred the metal on their end in Japan or North Korea, or Korea, or Vietnam, or India, there's a expense to take that material and then bury it properly. So they jack up the price, and then it becomes prohibitive. So that's the main reason. I mean, you could support it if you take a look at the economics. GSWA could charge everybody $10 or $15 per item, and then maybe that would cover the cost of finding a market that will take it, as well as the transportation.
Okay, so like I stay in an apartment and have my entire adult life, I guess, basically. But so I'm not a Guam Solid Waste Authority customer. So, I guess on that note, our landlords also have to provide us with with what would be white goods. But let's say I bought my own refrigerator because I wanted my own special refrigerator and I wanted to throw it away. Like, what are my options at that point?
Well, in the continental U.S., like
sorry,
yeah, here I'm just getting used to. Okay. But in the continental U.S., let's say you bought it at Home Depot, for example, and the attendant will ask you, well, do you want us to take back, the old item? So we'll deliver you your new refrigerator. Do you want us to take it back? People go, yeah. And then they'll charge them $40, $60 or whatever to install the new one, take the old one back. Home Depot will have a scrap dealer contract set up. So it makes it easy, to do that. And Lowe's, Home Depot, any of the appliance centers will do that.
And do you know what it is, what we do here?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I haven't bought it. Again, I live in an apartment, so I don't.
It hasn't been a practical use for you just yet.
No.
Okay, let's yeah, so with getting rid of white goods, it's on this list of banned materials from your own website. But from this Guam EPA 2023 recycling guide, it says, where does it say? I'll go ahead and throw this up on screen for the people who are watching, but metallic waste, it gives a few lists of options. So Brand Inc. and PD, FSM Recycling, Global Recycling Center, Zhang's Recycling. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce Chinese names. I can speak some Japanese and Korean, but I don't quite have Chinese. Pyramid and SD Recycling, and these are options. You can restore metallic waste. It doesn't say white goods explicitly, but maybe that's where it could go.
Correct.
Okay, cool. What else do I have here? So in the wake of Typhoon Mawar, we had a few or a handful of, I don't want to call them dump sites, but there were just some sites you can bring typhoon debris from, right? Or typhoon debris to. And what was the word we were using for those?
Debris sites.
Debris sites. Okay, perfect there. So there was, looks like one in Tidzin. There was one at, I think it's called Epao Point.
Right.
And there was somewhere in Dededo or?
The Dededo transfer station.
Okay.
The old Dededo transfer station.
Mm-hmm. And so it seemed they took just about everything.
They did, yes.
Okay. And so I don't imagine that was done willy-nilly. But was there a kind of end game plan? Do we know what we're going to do with everything yet?
Well, the timing of this is fortuitous. They're going to start hauling that waste this coming Monday.
Oh, what does that mean, hauling? Like
hauling to Lejeune. So the wood that they collected, the furniture, most of the items except for the green waste and the white goods will get buried at Lejeune. Mm-hmm. So people had like lawn furniture and play sets, all that stuff that was damaged because of the typhoon. The lumber, so that people that had decks and or
tin roof and wood
tin
framing.
Roof, the tin separated, so that's going to get baled up. And either I haven't heard whether Global's been able to accept all of that. I don't know if they know the true quantity. And GovGuam has hired through the Army Corps of Engineers two companies, PFM and ECC. They will both handle the transportation and some of the volume reduction on those materials.
Okay, but is anything going to get shipped off island? I'm sorry, could you specify what ultimately will be shipped off island if you know?
I don't know personally. I just know based on my experience with the amount of white goods and or tin metal that I really don't see the capacity on the island to handle that. That's my personal opinion. Mm-hmm. I don't know. We'll find out more as the coming weeks fold out how that's going to be handled.
Okay.
But we're prepared on our end because they did take household waste. We're going to be getting that Monday because it's becoming rather fragrant. So we'll get that Monday, and then some of the wood waste we'll also be getting.
Okay, so we're just so people know, we're recording this on a Friday, Liberation Day actually. So happy Liberation Day! And so over the weekend, after the weekend, you're gonna start cleaning up the sites. What do you have an idea when they're gonna be back to before? How they were gonna be back to before?
Early meetings we've had with the Army Corps and those two contractors, they scheduled 90 days, but they think they'll be able to handle the bulk of it within 60.
Oh wow! Okay.
That was a couple weeks ago. I don't know. I haven't heard any or seen any schedules.
Okay, not bad. It's not going to turn into a years-long event?
No.
Okay.
No.
Just a few months, ideally, barring another typhoon happening. I had, I think it was last episode of the podcast, I had the Idlet twins from the National Weather Service. They said this year looks like it could be a busy year. They said there will be more activity. Doesn't necessarily mean Guam will get hit or nearly hit again, but So we'll just see how things keep going. I wonder how much people took advantage of the debris sites and just brought stuff from home, which I'm not going to knock at all. Like, I would way rather have people take advantage of a system where they know things are going to be disposed of properly than to dump in the jungle or hoard things at their home until they can figure things out. So I'm totally fine with that. But I wonder if we keep having typhoons, if the debris sites are going to be getting, if assuming the same, effects of a typhoon, the debris sites will be getting smaller and smaller since it's been 20 some years since we have had our last typhoon, right? 2021. Okay.
Just based on the set out that we experienced when we gave everybody 2 free weeks of pickup, it was triple the normal amount that we pick up on a weekly basis.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wait, and pick up. Okay.
Yeah. And I was kind of joking with the crew who were exhausted. I said, I think these people are going to Kmart and buying trash. I mean, I don't know where it's coming from, man.
Okay. So with regards again to the debris sites, do you have a plan to remove leachates, and what are leachates? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Leachate.
Leachate? Okay. What is leachate?
Leachate is it's typically in a landfill. Mm-hmm. So it's the rainwater that travels through refuse.
Okay.
So if you think of a landfill as a tea bag, and you dump a tea bag into water, you'll see the water turn brown, right? It's the water mixing with the tea, and then that material leaving the bag. That's what leachate is. Okay.
All right. And so are you expecting any leachate from the disposal sites?
No, the household waste was brought in bags, so, and the green waste was kind of dry when it was brought in.
But but the bags tear, right? So
yeah.
Is it just not a sufficient quantity to make it a real concern, or
I would
or the bags do a really good job, or
I wouldn't. I mean, I'm sure that you could walk by the pile, and I said they were fragrant, and you could probably see some liquid seeping out. It is what it is. I mean, I don't know that you need to completely excavate the soil and treat it. It's no different than if you left your bag in your yard and it leaked, right? The homeowner doesn't go nuts and call in the EPA and dig his house up or anything. It's just, it's smelly, it's objectionable, but is it an environmental concern like a leaking landfill? But no.
Okay.
No.
Okay. So it's a scale of the thing, right?
It's a scale of the thing.
Okay, cool. So just going to shift gears here now. Dumping. Does Guam Solid Waste Authority have any kind of stake in the game with illegal dumping?
We've been called from time to time to clean them up, especially if DPW is extended. We've done that.
Okay. Is that your job? Is that a normal part of...
No, our job is to...
I wouldn't imagine.
No, our job is to pick up stuff at the curb, which we do.
Okay. So do you know if it is somebody's job to pick up,
Normally, if it's in the right of way, it's the Department of Public Works.
Okay.
You've gone, into sinkholes or whatnot, and then, God bless you, but there are people that go into the jungle and remove this stuff. So it's not their job, but that's how it's done, right? So
no, we also was it last weekend or weekend before we went into Paget because the trail was just trashed by the typhoon, so fallen trees into branches. And so someone asked me if I could do a chainsaw cleanup, and I'm like, I've never done a chainsaw cleanup. And then I'm like, wait, why not do a chainsaw cleanup? I never did anything until I did anything. We never did anything until we did anything. So we put out a call for volunteers. We got some chainsaws, and that trail's 100%. We cleared it 100% from the trailhead all the way to the cliff, passing through the cave, passing around the laddie sites. But also there was a refrigerator that has been at the trailhead for years. I'm not sure how long, handful. And I remember 10 years ago when I started, 14 years ago when I started hiking around there were white goods in the trail, like minutes away from the trailhead on foot. And it always bothered me that, they were there. But now that we have experience, we being the Guam Extreme Cleanup crew have experience with these types of things and equipment. I bought this with donation and shirt money. I bought a $200 dolly from ERC because it's rated for 1,000 pounds, but also it has these big fat tires. So like I call that my off-road dolly. So we got the white goods out of there too and took it to EPAL while they were still accepting white goods. And so, I don't know who is responsible, if anyone is responsible for, going in and getting illegal dumping out when it's not causing a problem of traffic or anything. And maybe there isn't anybody, or maybe they just don't have time or enough people to do all of that, right? And so I'm like, whatever, I'll just do it myself. We'll just do it ourselves and we'll do what we can. So, and sometimes you have these really backward mentality where people will pick up trash on their street and other people are like, why are you doing that? That's the mayor's job. I'm like, come on, you guys, have some pride, right? Let's take care of our island together. But that said, it would be nice if there was an agency, some part of the government responsible for these things and the community helped out instead of, and maybe it is exactly that situation. I don't want to be ungenerous, if ungenerous is a word. But it'd be nice to know who that is if there is somebody, if I said, hey, there's some junk refrigerators in this kind of side road, and, my nieces or nephews or whatever have to walk past them on the way to school. I'm worried about if they're raising mosquitoes in there, not my nieces or nephews, but if mosquitoes are growing up in stagnant water, if they get cut, if they trip or whatever, if they slip, if it's rainy, are they going to get tetanus, anything like that. So Guam Solid Waste does not directly do anything to combat illegal trash dumping regularly. On the odd occasion, you will?
On the odd occasion, when all else fails, that we either provide a dumpster and or, send people over and pick up bags.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if people did want to be more supportive and more helpful, is there, what would you suggest?
So part of the interview process that I went through, and then actually a couple of high school students had asked me about that illegal dumping. What would you do? How would you solve it? And I responded, so first of all, the community as a whole has to decide that, yeah, this is a problem. So once they decide that, then they have to act on it, right? Which means, what you're doing right now needs to be a little bit expanded. Bringing government agencies like EPA or even Guam Solid Waste or DPW to clean up the area, because it's important to remove that material so people don't see it as acceptable, right? If they go into the jungle and they see a refrigerator, it's been there a while, well, that must be what you do with it, right? I don't know.
We've normalized the sight.
You've normalized it. So that has to become abnormal. Mm-hmm. And early on, I've made this, it's probably not a great analogy, but I've owned cats for a while. You've
got me, you got my full attention. Where is this going?
Okay. So if you don't litter train a cat, they'll go someplace, right? And if you don't pay attention to where they're going, they just go back to the same spot. Mm-hmm. Same with people. So if they see a dump site started, other people see it, and
it's already there.
It's already there. Another cat, I'm going to go over there. So it's important to clean it up. It's important to make sure that the community understands this is not acceptable. And the thing that you have to do is you gotta turn people in. Like DPW can go through the bags and look for names and addresses. That's how I did it in Frederick, Maryland, Loudoun County, Virginia. People leave evidence that it was theirs, mm-hmm. right? If you know who's doing it, drop a dime on them, man. Because the authorities need to come in and say, hey, this isn't right. Mm-hmm. You did this.
I am fully in favor of punishing people that do this. We're so easy to get riled up about violent crimes, as we should, and and but it affects everybody knows somebody, or if not themselves, has been affected by like violent crime, and there's really no comparison in that aspect to kind of littering and dumping, but littering and dumping affect all of us too, right? And so why do we get so riled up about one and not the other? I think we should get mad at both, mad at anyone that's wronging each other or our island and our community.
Well, just so your listeners know, this is not unique to Guam.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, New York City, very sophisticated, cosmopolitan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they got illegal dumping in that 9 million people, and the way they started to solve it, they haven't solved it. I don't think you can solve it because it's it's been around for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Is they've established a $2,000 fine, and anybody that turns somebody in, either video evidence or whatever, or testify, they get half of the fine.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's a conviction, they get $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a multiple offender, some of the commercial businesses they confiscate your vehicles.
Oh, wow.
So that's how serious you need to be to even start to manage the problem.
That gets us into another tangle of weeds, though, just because, it's like, man, but that's my god brother.
I know.
And so it's hard. What do you call it? To on the enforcement side of things.
There's only so many people. Everybody knows each other on Guam, so I get that. I understand that part. But again, like I explained, if the community decides that this is a problem and they want it to be solved, there are ways to do that, and it means changing what's happened. Because if you want everything to be the same, it's not going to be the same.
Okay, so we're downstream now. Let's go upstream. So when I was growing up, from what I remember, like trash pickup was free, or was basically next to free. And if you want to be technical, nothing's free. I know, but at point of function, at user interface, it was free. I'm sure it's taken out taxes, whatever. But you didn't have to line up and pay a bill anywhere. And so what happened? Why did that change? That's again, you've been here for like 2 years.
So what drives the economics of waste collection and disposal is how much money you spend on your landfill.
Mm-hmm.
So ORDOT was basically a ravine that DPW took over. There's no engineering to it, really.
Mm-hmm.
So you just brought the trash in, and guy in a bulldozer pushed it down, and maybe covered it up, maybe didn't. Not a lot of money, involved. That's why it was free, because they would cover it with other revenues.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way it was done when I joined in 1985. The landfills that I managed were, about to be closed. They were unlined. They're going to create new line landfills because EPA passed the RCRA regulations and required line landfills for municipal solid waste. So once that happened, you were spending upwards of $3 to $4 million per landfill cell. Got to collect the money some way, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Nobody wanted their taxes, increased, so they set up user fees. And now everybody's like, "Wait a minute, this was free." Like, well,
Okay.
No, not really, but that's what made that little joke about Kmart. You buying your trash? Everybody buys their trash. Like it was valuable when you needed it at one point. Mm-hmm. Now that you've used it, I want it to be free. Like, not really.
Would you happen to know, I'm sorry I'm surprising you with this, but would you happen to know if anyone's done any kind of calculations, like what would it result in a tax increase, like what percent or how much per person to make trash pickup free? Like if we, instead of charging over, rate of $30, $35 to a Guam Solid Waste Authority customer, like if we just threw it back into taxes and made it free, function again.
Our collection program per year is $21 million, roughly.
That's how much that's the revenue?
No, that's the expenses.
Okay. And so 21 million a year.
Yeah.
Okay, wow. What's your revenue?
The same, because we normally break even.
Oh, wow. Okay. So $30 plus whatever fees you collect
from the commercial end of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
21 million a year. So divide that out about. Okay, so maybe that's not such a small increase in taxes then.
No.
Okay, maybe $21 million a year of expenses, and also that's what the revenue is divided out to 100.
It varies year to year, but I'm just giving you some rough numbers.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to take a calculator and a piece of paper with that one. That doesn't sound very comfortable to increase the taxes with, but
Normally it doesn't.
Uh-huh.
That's why they set up user fees and separate it from the government end of it, so they're not tagged with. And then if that number scares you, then the long term closure post closure costs for a 150-acre disposal cell, well, it's 170 million.
to close Luzon 70 years from now, it needs to.
If you do it that way.
If you do it properly.
What we're proposing, and what I hope to release soon, is a landfill infrastructure plan. We want to sequentially open and close landfill cells so that you're not obligated to close the entire 150 acres at the end of its life. So you'll use the fees that you collect revenue-wise to then pay off and close. So if you have a 75-year life, you're on the hook for 30 years of post-closure. So doing the math, at least 25 to maybe 40% of Lejeune will be past that 30-year period. And then they're off the books. So you don't need to retain that money. So there's less money at the end of its life, but you're collecting that and putting it away as you're operating it.
Okay, no, that makes sense, because was ORDOT just one massive dumper, and so there's no cells or any kind of thing? Okay, wow.
Nobody collected revenue, and it's like, here you go. You got to come up with, what was it, I think 45 million or so. ORDOT was the price tag on that.
Okay. Oh, wow, wild. Let's see what's over here. Would you happen to know, this is probably a DPW question, but from your perspective, would you happen to know what is the cost of cleaning up illegal dump sites and managing those wastes?
Not off the top of my head. I mean, it's all manpower and whatnot. And again, most of the cleanups that I've been involved with are small. Some of the sites that have happened around Mawar are pretty large. They required almost a full day to actually, pick up and remove. So.
Okay. Let's see. So we collect some recycling. Yes. What do we actually? What do we collect? What do you collect rather on island, and what actually gets recycled on island versus what gets shipped off?
Nothing gets turned into products on island. So the stuff that we collect is the plastics.
Do you still collect plastics?
Yeah.
So like outside your window, we can see the Harmon transfer station. Right. Can I start bringing plastic bottles there again?
We collect the plastic from curbside.
Okay.
We take the metal cans, and I think we do allow the mixed plastic here, but once it's sorted, unfortunately the plastics right now there is no market, so that actually gets buried. So we pay for the sorting of it, but that material actually gets buried at Lejeune because there is no market.
All right. So
I have calls. There's a recycling facility in Perth, Australia, that can take chipped plastic that's slightly contaminated, and they hope to be up and running next month. So I've been contacting them, looking at our quantities that we've collected, and just saying, what would be the rates? And they said, well, we'll give you the rates once we get established. So I am looking for off-island opportunities. There's a company called Swire Shipping that has a program that will offer no-cost transport to any of their ports that they go to. Perth is one of them. So it'll go from Guam up to Busan, get transferred to a ship from Busan down to Australia.
Wow, that is a really long detour.
Yeah, that's what has to happen with plastics. So the cardboard, there is a market for that, and that gets shipped off island. The bimetal cans also is a market that gets shipped off island. And the glass remains on island, and the contractor Rubbish Man is working with DPW or looking for on-island uses for their pulverized glass. That's something that we may use because I used it in Winnipeg, Canada, for bedding for leachate and gas lines, and or potentially in a leachate collection system.
So there's nothing we process here. Like we collect recycling, but we don't do anything with them.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. I had a funny question from one of my group chats. I asked if people had any questions for you, and one of those is, can Guam Solid Waste collect recycling every week? So again, I'm not a customer, so you don't collect recycling every week.
Well, that's something.
If you don't mind me saying you, I'm saying like
no
y'all. Maybe I should say y'all.
Y'all.
Okay.
go back to my Virginia days. Yeah. Right now we have on a day-to-day basis probably 5 or maybe 6 working trucks. We need 10 to actually service everybody like we did before I came here in October. So once we get our new fleet, when we have 10 trucks, we're going to have 3 delivered in hopefully beginning of September, sometime around September, and then 3 more maybe in October. That'll be 6. We have a RFP that's out that's due to be opened first or second week in August for 4 additional to bring us up to that 10 number. I really want to do the math and look at the rerouting and see if we can offer, because it makes it convenient for everybody. Same day as your trash picks up, put your recycling out. Right now we do it because of logistics. We have to do it on Fridays, and it's every other week, sort of, and it gets confusing, especially when we had to suspend it because of the typhoon and then reinstall it 3 weeks later. You know, people are like, "You missed our recycling." It's like, no, sorry, but we changed the dates because of the typhoon, that type of thing.
So would you be okay to tell people, or if I tell people, like, you know, until something changes, just throw your plastic in the trash because it's going into the landfill anyway?
You could do that, yeah.
Okay, and you know, and you can for now save space in your recycle bin.
Right. So what happened when the receiver took over? They instituted the recycling program, but they didn't do what you really need to do an effective recycling program, is an upfront education program. That was never done. It's like, here's your bin, here's a flyer, how do you use it? Recycling takes time and practice. Like when I did it in Maryland, we had to meet a 30% diversion rate within 2 years. The way we did it was we had block captains.
Sorry, diversion rate means
meaning that whatever you collect in recycling had to be 30% of what the volume was going into your landfill.
Okay, so that seems pretty low compared to 100%.
Well, it's still
this is a goal. This is a realistic goal.
It's still a big freaking number when you're starting from 0.
But you know, just with trying to get people to do different things. Okay.
But to do that, you know, I had a recycling coordinator that never slept. You know, we had a recycling staff. We had, you know, videos. We did a whole lot of messaging and training block captains before the program was rolled out. Once the program was rolled out, we used it to look in bins, tag them, say, hey, you know, you can't put a diaper in there. Sorry. You think it's plastic? It's not plastic. Your kid's toy or your dog's toy, yeah, that's plastic, but it's not. We only wanted milk cartons, laundry detergent bottles. That's it. Those are the 2 types of plastic. Showed pictures, reinforced it. We did meet the 30%, but it took effort. You know, you can't just roll a bin out and say, hey, use this. People They read the flyer. Okay, plastic must mean oh, this looks like it's plastic. I'll put that in there.
That looks like metal with paint on it to me.
I know, but I'm just saying that's what happens, and that's the contamination rate. Just to give your viewers or listeners, the contamination rate in the continental and the contingent U.S. normally is 2%. We're operating at 70.
What's a contamination rate?
Meaning that that bin of recycling, 70% of it isn't what could be recycled.
Okay. So 70% of the stuff in recycling bins is not supposed to be in there.
Right.
Wow. Okay.
So if we do this, we get our trucks together. My plan is to, again, offer weekly, but kind of reimagine and refocus the whole recycling program so that there is education, there is sort of monitoring of it to make sure that it's operating correctly, tagging it to, again, let people know, hey, what you did wasn't exactly what we needed, and these are the materials, again, that we can take.
Okay, well, if it's any help, on Instagram, I'm on. It just sounds cringe to talk about my own social media, but on Instagram, I have, I have my own channel. It's called TheGuamGuy, all one word. And my videos, I make Chris Barnett calls it enviro adventure videos. So I'm environmental in nature, but I also really like doing adventure things. So I like to make the videos where those two things intersect usually, but sometimes one or totally the other. And I usually get 20 to 30,000 views this year. So if it's any help to get the word out, I can get you about 20 to 30,000 views. Just people hopefully like, these are okay, these are not okay. I just need to find a way to make it fun to watch because no one goes on social media to learn, right? But yeah, maybe we can talk about that offline. But damn, 70%.
I know. So I mean, when I first came on board, it was like, hey, why don't we just eliminate the program because it's costing money and we're not getting any results. And from a business perspective, I'm with you 100%. However, it's human nature that, okay, this thing isn't working just right. It hasn't been working for a while. So this isn't like it's a new problem. So my plan was, let's not like cut off the recycling program and then have to reinstitute it some other time. I would rather keep it and then really inform people of how best to use it instead of taking it away and then trying to reintroduce it at a later time.
Okay. I got another specific item here. Tires. What happens to tires, and what does the possibility look like of a rubber recycling facility?
Well, I think you have one right now. It's RTC.
Oh.
Isn't it?
I don't know, actually.
Yeah. I think they take the tires and basically shred them or reduce them, and then they get shipped to India.
Oh, okay. But, what happens? Do you know what they do with them? And could we do that here, or just cost too much?
I don't know. I don't know how much. It's a math problem. So if the
I say that all the time. Let's ask this as a math question.
Okay.
Right.
So landfills could use chip tires. They've used them in leachate collection systems. But again, you're only building your landfill cells 3 to 4 years at a time. It's a certain quantity that you need. I don't know how many tires are produced on Guam, what the quantity is. But if there's a matchup, or at least a percentage of them, that could be an avenue where you don't have to ship them off the island. They could be used. The problem with tire chips in the past has been they've had steel belts in them. And when you put that into a leachate collection system, you get a boatload of iron that flocks out. As soon as iron hits oxygen, it makes
rust.
Rust, right. And so your leachate pumps are not as effective when they're constantly being, coated with rust material. I had a colleague of mine who did that in Florida and just hated the tire chips because of that. But those have been, right now it's Kevlar belts in those belted, so there's no iron in them. And that could be a possibility for Guam.
Okay. Yeah, I think we got through basically all my questions except for one last thing, I'll just go ahead and go through that. So we we have collections, we have responsible disposable. Broadly speaking, what do you think we can do better? I mean, obviously everything we can do better, but what can we do to like reduce waste easily? So buy less things, use less things, right? But like, is my question making sense? What can we do to like lessen the burden?
It's
like individuals and agencies, businesses, governments. Yeah.
So
floor's open.
So, like I said with the Kmart joke, we
Mm-hmm.
actually buy our trash.
Mm-hmm.
We make a conscious decision of what we want and why we want it. So if you can pick an item that there's less of a trash impact, that's probably the item I would try to buy. So early on, dating myself, I used to buy CDs, right? Those were the way you got your music was in a CD.
I don't know how young you think I am, but yeah, I remember being excited for anti-skip CD players.
They all came in plastic covers and they're shiny and whatnot. And then some people were they put them in paper, right? Because why do you need the glitzy packaging, right? So that's a small thing, but that works. We got criticized recently. We had a appreciation lunch. Guam Solid Waste had the lunch with styrofoam plates, paper cups. Like, oh my gosh, look at this waste. I'm like, okay, I get it, but we've got a lot of things to do. That's one of them. But those are things that can reduce the waste as well. Go back to the days like my dad worked for Coca-Cola for 42 years, so a lot of his career was handling glass bottles. He took them back to the plant, washed them, put the soda back in them. They didn't have any plastic that clogged landfills. Now it's 2-liter bottles everywhere. So
okay, so
yeah, I mean
it sounds like
the whole trash thing starts with what you buy.
Mm-hmm. So there's two ways to look at that, right? There's one where it's the consumer type of activism where you just don't buy things that you don't want to support. But there's a pushback from others that say, no, it's got to come from like bigger, like just make laws that say no more plastic products and nothing that comes in a plastic product. So,
well, in Europe they have and even Canada, they've got producer fees. So whoever manufactures the thing has to pony up money for its eventual disposal.
Mm-hmm. All right, yeah, and that's getting really quickly and easily into the politics.
Exactly.
Okay, so
exactly. But I mean, those are some of the avenues that have been looked at. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so. Anything that you were hoping to talk about that we didn't get to talk about?
No, I think we covered a wide range of things.
Okay.
A wide range. I appreciate the time. So.
Okay. No. Thank you. Man, I feel like there's just we could have gone down like so many tangents and going deeper and deeper. Like when we started going into the chemistry, I'm just like, I want to go into this like so hard, but we have like we have other interesting, more practical, let's say, to use to customers and users.
Again, to bring up my aversion to the word dump. So again, a modern landfill involves chemistry, it involves engineering, it involves hydrology. There's a lot of science behind it. So, it's not just a hole in the ground that you throw stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I wish I could think of a clever sign-off. I'm gonna, sometimes I do listen to my own episodes just because like the people such as yourself that I interview are just so knowledgeable, but I'm just trying to keep the conversation going. So I'm definitely gonna come back and listen to this. I might have some follow-up questions, and I don't know if I have a chance to address them in another video, or in another episode. But this has been really cool, really interesting. I wish I was a little better prepared as an interviewer.
No, we could do it again. I appreciate it.
Okay.
I could walk you through landfill 101,
Oh, maybe we could tour a landfill. Is that possible?
Sure.
Yeah. Oh shoot. Okay. Let's do that. Okay. Let's end the episode and then we'll talk offline about possible collaborations. Okay. So thanks for joining another episode of the Guam Guy Show. Then thank you to my guest, Mr. Irvin Slike, General Manager of Guam Solid Waste Authority. And for this enlightening episode that also raises probably as much questions as we answered, if not more. And thanks for listening and thanks for watching.